Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President and CEO of the Vancouver Board of Trade, Ian Black.
It is my special pleasure, indeed, to welcome you to the Board of Trade's first moderated discussion with the President of Hockey Operations of the Vancouver Canucks, Trevor Linden, as well as General Manager of the Vancouver Canucks, Jim Benning, and the new head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, Willie Desjardins. Today's discussion will be moderated by the Sports Director and Sports Anchor for Global News, Squire Barnes. Now, change is inevitable. As we all know as business people, it's inevitable in any organization, and the Vancouver Canucks have certainly had their fair share of change over the last number of months. Today, Trevor Linden, Jim Benning, and Willie Desjardins of the Vancouver Canucks will share their thoughts and strategies on what's next for our fantastic organization. How will they learn from the past and build for the future? For over 127 years now, the Vancouver Board of Trade has been doing precisely this, bringing together you, the men and women of our business community who make the capital investment decisions and the employment decisions that actually drive the economy.
You, of all people, understand how this team is to the community, how important it is to the community.
Yeah, I think definitely, obviously, for me to be sitting in front of you today is a little bit surreal. Obviously, I wasn't sure if I'd be back or if ever, or what capacity. So it's quite an honor to be here. And my connection with this team is certainly very deep. I came here out of high school from Medicine Hat as an 18-year-old and kind of grew up in front of the people of BC and Vancouver. I still get the stories today of you know, I was in high school when you got here, and I identified with you because we were the same age, and you know, the people of Vancouver and British Columbia saw me come back, and so I understand the importance of this organization to this community and what it means. So it was a real privilege to have the opportunity to come back in the capacity that I was offered.
And Jim also was a Vancouver Canuck many years ago. Did you guys play in the same team?
We were teammates.
Yeah, for 1 year.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about each other?
Well, I remember we didn't have a very good year the year before. We had the second overall pick in the draft, and we were able to, the team drafted Trevor, so that was kind of the turning point for that franchise going forward. So
do you remember your first impressions of him?
Well, I thought he was, for an 18-year-old kid, he was very mature. He came in here, and right away he was one of our best players. So it would be nice if we could draft another Trevor Linden here, but we'll see.
And how important is it to you, and how wonderful is it for you to have two leaders like the Sedins on your team?
It's exciting. You win with your leaders, you know, and it starts at the top with Trevor and Jim and comes down, and you win with your leadership. And those guys they're not just great hockey players, they're great people. And, you know, in the end, that'll come through. Like, when it gets tough, you know, you think about, you know, how hard they play. Like, they're playing with broken ribs last year. Like, that's real character, and you know, they'll do us proud this year.
When you went to Boston to work with the Bruins, was it not a similar situation to what you have now? What was your approach there?
What we wanted to do is change the culture, change the environment, create the winning environment. It was never a question. We were going to draft well. We were going to make good trades, but we wanted to develop our kids in a winning environment. To, you know, from the coaching standpoint of playing the right way, you know, all the way through our organization. So, you know, it was like day by day, you know, that was our approach. And, you know, from when we started to, we had a 5-year plan. In that 5th year, we were lucky enough to win. So, like what we did this summer is we tried to bring in players to support our core group of players. I talked to players that are trickling into town now for training camp. Everybody's excited, so we're ready to get started.
Trevor, you know some of these guys personally. You played with some of these players that are still on this team.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you had played with the core group. You played with the Sedins, you played with Burroughs, Edler, and Kevin Bieksa, to name a few. But were those guys, was what happened last year really indicative of where they are?
You know, there's a lot of, you know, I think when I took over, I tried to assess what happened and why, and I knew that the one thing we didn't have is a character problem. I know there's good people there. I believe that, and just to tag on what Willie said, is that there are teams in the NHL that do have an issue in their locker room with character, and we don't. We've got good people that care. When I did the exit meetings last year, tell you that was hard to do, because not only were the guys disappointed and upset, some were very emotional at how things went because they care, and so I played with 3 or 4 of them, and I think when Jim came in, Jim was adamant about winning and bringing our young kids up in an environment where they can be taught good habits. And when you think about Daniel and Henrik, or Kevin Bieksa, or Alex Burrows, even the Chris Higgins, these guys are hard workers. And when you see, it's interesting when you see at prospect camp, or you see now when you see the young kids training with these guys, they see exactly what it takes, and it's impactful. When you see a professional like Daniel and Henrik come to the rink and how they prepare for practice and for games and whatever it is, that's what we want our kids to see on a day-to-day basis. And so that was really important, and Jim did a really good job of allowing us to remain competitive, but also restocking our young kids, and that took place. It was interesting. I've never seen someone spend so much time on a phone in my life, from the moment he got the job until after the draft, whether it be dealing on the Ryan Kessler situation or numerous other opportunities he had. But that was his main focus, was to support the guys we had, give them an opportunity to win because we feel they still can. And we like our team. Bringing Ryan Miller in to support Eddie, we feel we've got one of the top 2 or 3 goaltending tandems in the league. Our defense, with the addition of Spiza, and obviously we had some guys back there that underperformed. I can't put my finger on exactly why we had so many players underperform in the same year, but I believe in these guys, and I think that in the right system, that they're going to flourish. And so we like what we have. We've got younger. We've got a more depth, and so we're really excited. I mean, we're going to head up to Penticton later this week with our for the rookie tournament, and it's a really exciting time of the year.
But as you said to me, if the coach doesn't believe in the guys sense that, and this is something you've always done when you were coaching. You want to let those guys know that you believe in their talents.
You do, but the biggest thing is you have to really believe in them. Like, you can't pretend you believe, because it just doesn't go that way. But we really do believe in them. Like, it's a great spot. Like, when I looked at all the places, this was a great place to come, and I know those guys are capable. I know they're proud guys too. Like, you can just see it. You can see it in them when you talk to them. Like, it hurt them last year to lose. Like, it wasn't an easy thing, and some guys thought maybe things broke down a little bit, but it broke down in some ways because of how much they hated losing, and that year's gone now, and that's a good thing, that we don't have to think about it and deal with it. And it's a good environment to come in, and I know they're excited about it.
And they come in and you give them a fresh slate, right?
I do, for sure. Like, I believe it, and I know that it's a group that wants to go.
Jim, let me ask you, you had to make the big trade in the offseason with Ryan Kessler, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. He had a no-trade clause. I wanted to ask you about no-trade clause contracts, because a lot of teams get saddled with them, and then it is difficult to make a trade. What are your thoughts on no trades?
Instead of giving a player more money, or they can get a player for a little cheaper on the salary cap to help build their team, but they trade off. The trade-off is a no trade. But the problem with no trade clauses is when you approach a player to ask him to waive his no trade, then all of a sudden he dictates to us where he wants to go and who he wants to go for, and so they seem to get like full control of the situation. So given my choice, I would rather not deal with them.
That's a way of saying that it took years off his life with no trade, because I saw it firsthand. If you would have saw him around draft time, he looks great today. I'm not sure he looks so good because it was a pretty fascinating situation.
Did you have a no trade?
Did I?
Yeah.
No, I never, they didn't have him back when I played. And, yeah. So,
What are your thoughts on them?
you know, as Jim said, you know, we're lucky enough to play in a city that players want to be part of. They want to stay here. You know, I think they get attached to the city because it offers a great lifestyle, and they believe in what this organization is doing, and they're treated really well. So that's good. But it was tough. It was tough dealing on two fronts. I mean, we had one player who wanted to leave, and he was dictating the situation. We had one player that didn't want to leave, and we asked him to move. So it was, it's not easy. And in this particular situation, Jim walked into a situation where I think we had 9 or 10. So you got half your team that can dictate. So having said all that, you know, I think that we're really pleased with the outcome and where we are today, considering when I look back at the first day I walked in the office, it's been a productive few months.
Willie, I know every coach always gets asked this. What style do you like to play? But I'm wondering if you have to work with what you got. If you had a bunch, not that you do, but if you had a bunch of guys who can't skate very well, you're not going to say, hey, let's play for the Oilers of the 80s. So what style would you like to play, and what do you think you can play?
I want to play a tempo game. I want to play an attacking game where we go after teams, but to do that you have to have the puck. So you got to play great defense to begin with. Like, you got to be good defensively and turn the puck. But this team its makeup is exactly what I want to coach. Like, I think they're, you know, sometimes when you think about being fast, you go, maybe our guys, some of our players aren't the fastest, but they think fast. And when you think fast, you can play fast. And so I think we have a lot of guys that are real smart players, and I think we can have a real fast team just because of how we think.
So when you say think fast, quick decisions?
Yeah, quick decisions. They'll think of what's going to happen before it happens, so they're already moving into the right place. And we have some of the best in the league at that. So I think with that we can be a quick team, and you know, we want to think, you know, if we get the puck, we want to attack. If we turn it over, we want to defend, and we'll do both quickly.
I should mention, we had mentioned earlier about questions that you can ask as well. We'll come around and pick up some of your questions, and we'll have those at the end of our Q&A here. Jim, of all the players, there were quite a few you had to bring in the summer. You made a number of changes. Is there one guy, and this is not to downgrade any of the other ones, but one guy who's kind of maybe flown under the radar that you think, you know, watch this guy, he's going to be good?
Well, I think Linden Vey could be that guy for us. You know, I've watched him quite a bit living in Boston. LA's farm team is in Manchester, which is 45 minutes up the road. So I've seen him play quite a bit this last 3 years. He's a guy, he's a puck possession guy. He buys time and space with the puck. He makes good plays. He sets his wingers up for scoring chances. You know, some games I went to, that line that he played on was the best line in the league, the Pearson, Vey, Toffoli line, and Pearson and Toffoli ended up playing in LA in the finals, or, you know, through the Stanley Cup playoffs, and played real good for them and was a big part of them winning. Some games, Linden Vey was the best guy of those three guys. So I think he's at the point now with LA's center ice, you know, with Kopitar, Carter, Richards, and Stoll. It could be the best center ice in the league. He wasn't going to get an opportunity to play there. We recognized that. You know, we gave him a second-round pick to acquire him, and he's a kid that wants to do well, and I think he's going to come in here and he's going to prove that, given his chance to play in the league, he's going to do well.
And I guess you would have coached against him last year, would you not have?
I never coached against him. We never played Manchester, but I coached him before.
Oh, that's right. You did coach him, Medicine Hat, yeah.
Yeah. So what Jim says, he's a good player. He's an exciting player, and he has an attitude that he wants to win. Like, he wants the opportunity. He's not afraid to get the puck. He's not a guy that goes, well, I hope it doesn't come to me. He's a guy that, always saying, give me a chance, I want to play, and I think that's the way he's approaching the year.
How many ex-Medicine Hat Tigers are in this organization now, Trevor?
Not enough. No, it's interesting. It's just kind of the way it worked out. Willie coached in Medicine Hat after I left, and my mother is a huge Medicine Hat Tigers fan.
And she's now like a de facto scout.
And she's one of our chief scouts in Alberta actually right now. But anyways, she's a huge fan and loves the game. And it's interesting. 2001, 2, 3, I kept hearing about her Medicine Hat Tigers and how good they are, and she loves the coach there. And they went to the Memorial Cup in 04 in Kelowna. Yeah, and that's the first time I met Willie, and I just said hi, and then they were out here in 07 for the Memorial Cup again, and Willie was the coach there, and it was interesting. It just the way it kind of worked out. Obviously, Willie was someone I identified, and Jim, we identified as someone who, I think in coaching you can have, X's and O's is the easy part. You can design all the plays you want and structure everything you want, but it's the ability to connect with players and get players to play for you. And Willie's teams historically have played hard, and so that's the real challenge I think in coaching, is being able to connect with players and get them to buy into what you're selling. And so he's been able to do that at every level, and we feel really good about him coming here, and because ultimately I think if for fans who watched our group last year, it looked like they lost hope, and like they weren't having any fun, and we need to bring that hope back and recapture some of these guys who didn't have great years, and put some fun back in the game, and ultimately make Rogers Arena a better place and a more fun environment than it's been.
When you were looking for a coach, Jim, what were you thinking about? Trevor was just saying, obviously.
Yeah, Trevor and I, we talked about this extensively, about the traits that we were looking for in our next coach, and we wanted somebody that respects the players, that treats the players well, but is a hard-working, and their teams play with structure and discipline. And we went and watched Willie's team play a couple times in Toronto when they were playing in the playoffs, and all those things that we were looking for, Willie's teams displayed. So it was a matter of, when Willie's team's done, let's stay on this and let's, get him in here. But there was other teams on Willie's tail too, so we're lucky to have him.
You were a wanted man, weren't you?
It was funny after all those years that everybody had come the same year, but it was good though. And Vancouver's a place I wanted to come right from the start, just the way they were and how they approach things. And you look at the video, and I can't imagine how Trevor felt watching the video. And for me, it's just like, what a chance to be a part of something like that and get your own run going. So that's kind of what I look forward to.
Well, it's one thing for a player to make the NHL. There's way more player jobs than there are coaches' jobs. And when you've been a successful coach for a long time, I'm sure you've worked alongside guys or against guys who never did make the NHL. Do you think after all, geez, am I ever going to get my chance?
Well, you wonder if the chance is going to come, but I think it's like in every organization, you know where you want to go, and you just keep going. And I say that about players too. A lot of times I think the guys that make it are the guys that just won't give up, because every career has ups and downs. It's not that they're not all good. It's not always good. And it's the guys that can stay with it and get through the bad times to get to the good times that usually are rewarded. So I think it's the same for a coach as a player.
I was going to ask you, Trevor, since of the three you played most recently, when there is a number of coaching changes, and some of these guys are now going to see 3 coaches in 3 years, how is it for a player when a new coach comes in?
I mean, there's always that feeling out process, but I think you, as a player, and one of the things I identify, and this is what Pat Quinn taught me, is that Pat had the ability to respect his players, and for me that was the most important thing, is that Pat was firm. He sometimes would be unhappy with the situation, but he always treated his players with respect, and that meant a lot as players, and that's how Pat got buy-in. Pat, when you think about he took over in 1990, 91, I think, and you know, we had a bit of a motley crew, and he was, you know, making changes, but he was able to get guys that, you know, whether it be a Robert Dirk or Sergio Momesso or you know, or Cliff Ronning, who had been, you know, undervalued in another organization. He found a way to get the most out of these players, and that's a real skill. So, you know, as players, you identify pretty quickly in the process how authentic and real the coach is, and that is, you know, as Willie said earlier, you know, players figure things out, and they can see through things very quickly. If it's not genuine, it's not authentic, it's going to run very thin. So I think players look for that first, and right now we've got a group of guys who want to prove themselves and want to come back and prove to themselves, to the organization, you know, to the fans of Vancouver that they can get the job done.
Okay, we have some questions from the audience that we'll go to now, and the first one up is Ashley Howard from UBC. Says it's great to hear about the on-ice performance, and I guess this will be directed to you, Trevor. What about the changes operationally with the team behind the team? Because a lot was done there, and you've made changes at the arena as well for the fan experience.
Yeah, I mean, not only has it been exciting what's you know, sitting up with Jim and Willie, and from what's happened on the ice, but off the ice, you know, it's exciting just from our hospitality, whole new food and beverage service. So that's exciting. The in-arena experience is going to feel very different than it did last year, just from an entertainment standpoint. So lots of interesting things. The one great perk this summer was, of course, bringing in our whole new chefs and everything. We got to try all the food all summer. So it was, you know, it was, okay, you have to eat hot dogs this afternoon and tell us which one's the best. So it was, it's going to be a whole new field at Rogers Arena. So, and I think the important thing is that we're going to have the ability to control every fan experience and not have our food and catering outsourced. So we can control your experience from the minute you walk in the door to, you know, you get prompt service and great food, and your experience will be what we expect. And so that's...
He wasn't in the top 100, I don't think, good teams and good players. So once they're here, they've got to be able to play. And we have guys that are right at the door, and we'll see where they show up in camp.
Denise from Canuck Place and Children's Hospice, which does terrific work. For Jim, what was the most important element that you in Boston focused on to change the environment, and what will that also be in Vancouver?
Well, I think that's would be the scouting, the amateur scouting and pro scouting. So, you know, we're going to develop a criteria for, you know, the traits that we want in players going forward. You know, what is a Vancouver Canuck? Like we did that in Boston. What is a Boston Bruin? And we went out and we drafted and we traded for those types of players that not only play in the league, but players that you can win with. And, you know, I think we started that process when we took over here this summer, and we'll continue down that road.
And actually, another question from Nolan from Mount Seymour Resorts Limited. I'll go to you as well, Jim, on this one. You moved up in the draft. It was a pretty high, according to this question, it was a high price, but did you prefer Jake Virtanen? Did you just have to get him?
Well, the top 6 players in this draft were very good hockey players. So, like, going into the draft, we knew we were going to end up with a real good player. We tried to trade up. We tried to move up. We weren't able to do that. So, you know, we just rode out the storm, and their 6th pick came. Jake was there, and we're very happy to get him. He's a power forward. He's an excellent skater, has a real good release on his shot, and he's a physical player. He'll be a player going forward that we can win with. So, you know, we knew that was kind of be our worst case scenario, and so we were very happy to get him.
In closing today, I'd once again like to thank our supporting sponsor, PSAV.
that was disruptive, just like